How you doing, everybody? This is Mr. Russo again. Solving one-step equations. It's on a more of a beginner level. This is probably going to be one of the first videos that I show students who are just starting to learn how to solve anything that is a one-step equation, whether it's an adding or subtracting step or a multiplication and division step. So these are just a few quick examples. All right, I got an equation. If I look at the equation, my equal sign separates left and right-hand side. If my variable is on the left, I cover up the right. And then from there, I look in between. There's a plus or a minus. If I know that there's a plus or minus in between, it's an adding or subtracting step. So now, am I going to add or am I going to subtract? I look to the left of the number I want to get rid of. If it's a positive, I do the opposite, which is subtract. So I subtract 4 from both sides. I rewrite and then solve. So the 4's cancel. I bring down my negative x. When the signs are the same, I add and keep the sign. And then at this point, when I have a negative x, I'm not done yet. I want it to be positive, so I use my change rule. Change the sign, change the sign. So if I change that sign, I get positive. I change this sign, I get positive also. It just happens to be both positive. And I get x equals 127. Okay, 2. 8 equals negative x plus 45. Again, I find my variable, cover up the other side, plus or minus in between, adding or subtracting step. I do the opposite when it's an adding or subtracting step. So I subtract 45, draw the line. Now I rewrite. 45's cancel, bring down my negative x, equals. When the signs are different, I subtract and take the sign of the larger. So sign of the larger, subtract. I use my change rule. Change the sign. 37 equals x. Okay, number 3. X over 9 equals negative 16. I get to this point, and this is very close to being a proportion. A proportion is a fraction equal to a fraction. So to make it a proportion, and I can do this a bunch of different ways, but this is probably one of the easier ways to solve something that's close to being a proportion. I can just put this over 1 and then cross multiply. So if I cross multiply, I get x times 1 is 1x, or just x. 9 times 16, which is 144, and a positive times a negative is a negative. So my answer is just going to be x equals negative 144. All right, last one. 6 equals negative x over 5. Now at this point, there's a very similar problem, but I have a negative here. What I'm going to try and do is, if the negative is in the middle, whenever I have variables within a fraction or negatives within a fraction, you're allowed, and what I do is I just put them in the numerator. So I'm going to rewrite this a little bit. I'm going to rewrite this with a 1 under it, which I'm allowed to do. I'm going to put my variable and my negative, whenever I have them, in the numerator. So I really have negative x over 5. Now I get a nice proportion. I could cross multiply. So I cross multiply. 5 times 6 times 5 is 30, equals 1 times negative x is negative 1x, or negative x. And then from there, I use my change rule. Change. I get negative 30 equals positive x. So I got x equals negative 30, and I'm done. All right, there's no homework assignment for this video. It's just a quick little video on a few problems to reinforce your skills.